Hey guys, thanks for checking out this clip of Anatomy of the Church and State. Be sure to catch the full episode on Rumble or ChristiansForLiberty.com. Links are in the show description. Now, Brad, is there anything of extra importance in terms of consequences to all of our freedoms and liberties that you're fighting right now? Is there anything that's fire right now?
It's on fire. Well, the people losing their jobs, being purged across the country because they're brothers and sisters in Christ, that's a huge one. That's like a big one. And we're leading the charge across the nation to save jobs and families in these crises. Another one, though, is which is also related to the vaccine, is a little different scenario. It's people who are on what I call medical death row.
Hmm.
You may say, well, what's medical death row? That's a term I came up with, so you may not have heard of it before. But what it amounts to are people who are critically needing organ transplants or are going to die. A kidney, a heart, you name it, a liver. And they make it to the top of the list at a hospital because you get on a list at a hospital that's working with you. And then the hospital, you're at the top of the list and you're supposed to, you meet the criteria, you lost weight, you're doing your exercise, you're doing what you're supposed to do. And they're confident that you're going to live after you get the organ transplant and your body's healthy, otherwise healthy, and you critically need it. And yet the hospital suddenly says, oh, you're not vaccinated with the COVID vaccine, which, by the way, doesn't work and actually is counterproductive now, but we'll stay away from facts and science and studies.
Right.
So if they say, oh, you're not vaccinated, oh, well, then you don't get your critically needed life-saving organ. Go ahead and die. Because they have to start at the bottom of a list at another hospital. Now, over 90% of the hospitals in America, they don't do that. They say, whoever's at the top, you get the organ. We're not going to make it conditional on you being vaxxed. In fact, there's 2 studies showing people who are vaxxed are more likely to reject the organ. And that makes total sense. But anyway, so there are some hospitals, about 7%, that are hard-nosed, hardcore. Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, and others, some big boys,
Yep,
are saying you have to be vaxxed or you don't get an organ transplant. Well, we did some research. You know what we found out? We found that Mayo, Cleveland Clinic, and some of these big hospitals, they also happen to have contracts with big pharma,
convenient.
like Pfizer, Moderna. Just so happens. So they put money and their greed above the health and welfare of patients. Who wants to go and go to Cleveland Clinic, Mayo Clinic, when they have these kinds of policies that are obviously beholden to money and greed and power? Those are strong words I've used, but we've got the data, we've got the stats. So what we've done, though, is we've started representing these people on medical death row. We're filing lawsuits. We just saved the lives of 2 individuals recently from, I think it's called Trinity Hospital. They don't have that kind of relationship with Big Pharma, and they resolved, says, okay, all right, we'll let them have the organ transplants. And part of this is just involving an HR, the HR person at a hospital or whatever, and she's got the vax cult syndrome. She's just no, be vaxxed and rah rah, and and they're not using their brains. All right, they're not looking at the studies, not looking at the stats, and we see that in corporations, HRs, where they're just like hardcore, and they're not using, and we're suing companies because their standards are costing lives of people who otherwise would not have to be vaccinated, but for the policies exclusively of a company. So we had another case recently dealing with University of Michigan and Michigan Hospital. I think they are fit in the big pharma category. We just resolved the case. We filed a lawsuit out of our office in Detroit, and they backed down, and they said, okay, we acknowledge that these vaxes are not helping, they're not needed, they're no longer required. Had we not filed that lawsuit, we would not have seen that change, and people would have died. And we still have other people on medical death row that we're representing as we speak right now to save their lives because of the zombies, HR zombies who are in the vax cult and the greedy people there in these institutions who'd rather put money and their special grants and relationships with big pharma like Pfizer over and above the welfare of patients who are going to die. That's where we are in our society today.